Hey guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name's Erlonda if you guys are new, and if you're new, welcome. Today's video is going to be about my labor and delivery story time. I am gonna go ahead and get started because it's long and I have to tell the story from the beginning and then move forward. So basically, the reason why I want to tell this story more than anything is because I didn't expect any of these things from pregnancy. I did not think pregnancy was this hard. I didn't think, I didn't think that it was like this. I just used to see pregnant people and I used to be like, oh, they're so pretty, this and this. Like, oh, they're so cute, and that's all I would think about. But with that being said, last year I got married to my husband, and I got married November 25th, 2017. And the reason why I say this is because I got married to my husband, which he's older than me. For everybody who doesn't know, he is older than me, and I knew that one of us was gonna have to sacrifice, either him or me, or one of us was gonna have to budge. And I made the decision to go ahead and have a baby now, and because my husband is older, he's 27 and I'm 19. So this year in January, I told my husband I was ready to have a baby, and I was still in school. I was in my senior year of high school, and I got married before I graduated, yes. And so I thought, oh, I didn't think I was going to get pregnant in January, obviously, or I didn't think I was going to get pregnant soon because I am irregular. So with that being said, I told my husband I wanted to start trying. We started trying in January. By March, I was already pregnant. With that being said, like I said, I was irregular. So I didn't get my period. I didn't think anything of it. I wasn't taking care of myself before, but I wasn't trying, So, so then whenever I ended up getting pregnant, I didn't know I was pregnant until one day I woke up crying from back pain. And that's pretty normal when you're pregnant. It's like it starts hurting because you start carrying the weight up front. And it's pretty common in early pregnancy, but I did not know that, okay? So I woke up crying in the middle of the night because my back hurt so bad. And my husband's like, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? And I'm like, I don't know. My back hurts so bad. And I can take pain pretty good, So it was extreme for me to be crying. Like, it was an excruciating pain. And so then in the morning, I went to school, and I told my friend. She sat next to me. I'm like, dude, I think I'm pregnant. And she's like, why? And I'm like, my back was hurting. I haven't got my period. And in that moment on my way to school, I started brainstorming all the things that it could have been, and I definitely thought it could have been me being pregnant, but I wasn't sure. And I looked up the symptoms of pregnancy on Pinterest, and there was 15, and I had all of them. And I remember that day after school, I used to get out of school at 11, and from school I went straight to the dollar store, and I was going to buy a pregnancy test. But when I was there, I ran into somebody that worked at my school that knew me, so I was like, I am not gonna buy it. She already knew I was married and everything, and it didn't matter if I bought it or not, but I just didn't want, if I wasn't pregnant, I didn't want there to be rumors or for her to have known, that I thought I was pregnant or whatever the case may be. So I didn't end up buying it, and then I didn't end up buying it, so I went to go pick up carry out that my husband had ordered. So I went to go pick it up, and on the way home, just from the smell of the food, I ended up throwing up in my car. So I was like, I'm pregnant, I don't need a pregnancy test. I know it, I'm pregnant. And I ended up going to the dollar store that's nearest to my house, which was another one different than the one I had originally gone to, and I bought 2 pregnancy tests, a $1 one and a $15 one, and I said if the $1 one comes out negative, then I'm not going to use the $15 one, and if it comes out positive, then I'm going to go ahead and use the $15 one. And I came home and I waited 2 hours because I was like in shock, you know. I was like, I'm pregnant. Like, I just knew it, but I just didn't have it, like, I didn't know what that meant or like how it was gonna be or what, you know. I knew what it meant, but I didn't know how it was gonna go or what. So then I ate the food. Well, I cleaned up, well, I changed and everything, cleaned up, and then I ate, and I was just being normal, talking to my husband. I still hadn't told him that I suspected that I was pregnant. I didn't tell him anything about it. So then, I end up, 2 hours later, I end up, like, having the guts to take the pregnancy test. I took the pregnancy test, and, like, 2 seconds later, it positive, like, quick. And I was shocked. And then, after I took the pregnancy test, I went over to my room, which my husband was laying down, and I told him, I'm like, I need to tell you something, and I don't know how you're going to take this, and then I just gave it to him, and then he was so happy, and then, you know, we announced it to our family. He told his mom, I told my mom, and we were happy because that's what we wanted, you know. But in my head, I still had this idea that it was going to be so perfect, picture perfect, and all this stuff, you know. So I went to sleep at night again, and my back was still hurting, and I was having these back pains during the day too. And then it was like that until I finished high school. I finished high school, and I was so sleepy, you guys, so sleepy throughout the day. I would take naps, and my husband would call me, what are you doing? I'm sleeping, because my husband does work out of town. So, or I would just, it was like, I was always sleeping. And after that, I was fine at the beginning. Well, I mean, besides the like back pains, everything was great, you know. And then, like, I don't remember, it was August, so March, April, May, June, July, August. So, fast forward 6 months, I ended up getting sick. I ended up having a respiratory virus, which is like the common cold. But the thing is, I had so much phlegms in my lungs, I could barely breathe. Like, I literally felt like I couldn't breathe. And during that time, I ended up going to the emergency room 4 times. I ended up staying overnight at the hospital, which I had never gone to the hospital in my life besides once, and that was because I got ran over by this dude. So, anyways, ran over with the bike, okay? And, okay, so, anyways, I ended up staying 4 nights at the hospital, and I was just in and out of the urgent cares, the emergency room, because of that common cold. It ended up taking, you know, they say, I did take antibiotics while I was pregnant. They prescribed them to me, and nothing would take it away. It ended up lasting like 2.5 months. It didn't end up going away until like mid-October. And I'm talking about like phlegms, and not even just that. It was like I would cough for like 20 freaking minutes straight. It was so bad. My immune system was so weak. I couldn't, in my stomach, my baby, my belly was already big. And every time I would cough, like my belly would just shake. And that was from how much force I was putting every time I coughed. So I was very sick. I got so sick that I even got my husband sick. And then my husband ended up needing to go to work, and he ended up taking me to my mom's house so that I could stay there while he was out of town. So I stayed at my mom's house for a good like 5 weeks, I think, and I was there, and I remember actually before my husband brought me to my mom's house, I remember one time it got so bad, I ended up waking up gasping for air. And I didn't think anything about it at the moment until I thought it was from the phlegms, and I think I told the doctor the next day when I went to go see the doctor. But since I do have a history of having asthma, well, I haven't had an asthma attack since I was 4, but I basically, okay, so since I had a history, they didn't tell me anything about why I woke up gasping for air. They thought it was probably because I had too much phlegms, and that's what I thought too. So whenever I ended up staying at my mom's, I remember that I already knew that I would wake up gasping for air. And mind you, I never slept on my back until I got pregnant. I used to sleep on my chest or sideways. So with that being said, I didn't pay attention to that, and I continued my life like normal. I was still sick, and then the sickness started to slowly go away, and it was just better. Okay, so fast forward to almost the end of my pregnancy. To me, it was pretty normal to wake up gasping for air until 2 to 3 days before I gave birth. I woke up gasping for air one time, and I couldn't breathe. Like, I woke up gasping for air, and then I was like, and I couldn't breathe. I tried to breathe 4 times and I couldn't, and then I finally started crying, and that's when I caught a breath, you know? And then that time it was scary, and I was scared. I remember the first time that it happened, I didn't sleep for the next 6 days because I was so scared that it was going to happen again. So then after that, I started seeing it like it was pretty normal until that time where I tried to breathe and I couldn't for 4 times, you know? And I was getting scared, and it was almost like my due date. I think that day I woke up freaking out because I just like felt that I couldn't breathe, and then I was trying to breathe and I couldn't. And I started crying, and I told my husband, and I didn't know what it was, and I didn't tell my OGBYN because I don't know why I didn't tell her, but it was starting to become so common that obviously I didn't tell her. And so basically after that, I told my mom about it the next day, and she was telling me like, you need to take care of yourself, and then I ended up, my induction day came up, and I ended up going to the hospital, and I was ready to have my baby. So this is where the labor story part comes in. So basically I was ready to have my baby, but remember, keep in mind everything that I told you before this, okay, because it's gonna build up. Okay, so I ended up going in on Saturday the 8th. Well, actually it was already the 9th because it was like Saturday at midnight, you know, so it was already basically Sunday. So I went in, and it was already Sunday the 9th. And I went in, and, you know, I filled out my paperwork, and I put on my gown, and I waited there, and then we started with my induction. So I had to be induced at 39 weeks because my baby was so big, and if I didn't get induced at 39 weeks, then I wasn't going to be able to have my baby vaginally, and I wanted to have my baby vaginally, or at least try. So basically that's why I went in. They started me on Pitocin, and I think they started me at 8, and then I went up by 2. 8, and then 12, and then then 14, 16, 18, you know, all the way up to 36. I ended up going on Pitocin for 20 hours, and I dilated it was like a 6.5, 7 max, you know? And then that's when my doctor came in, and she told me it was already like 8 on Sunday. Yeah, it was still Sunday. So it was like 8 p.m. on Sunday, and she came into my room and she's like, hey, so how's it going? Like, what are you thinking? Like, we've already been here for a long time, you know? And so what are you thinking? Are you wanting to do a C-section or what? Because it was taking me too long to dilate. Mind you, I went in with a 3 of dilation, so I had to have progressed more because I was still at 6.5. And I had only dilated 3, you know, to like 3 centimeters. And so basically, she started telling me, like, just think about it, think about the C-section, because it could be a risk factor if I keep going, the baby could get tired, the heart could accelerate, and then I could have had an emergency C-section. So me and my husband, we didn't want that. Obviously, I didn't want a C-section from the get-go, and my mom didn't either. I'm the first one in my close family to have a C-section. So basically, like, whenever she told us, like, I'm like, you know, and I talked about it with my husband and my mom, and then we were all tired. I was tired too, like, from being there. I had already been there from 12 to 12. That was already 12 hours, and then from 12 to 8, you know. So I had been there 20 hours basically, and I had been there 20 hours trying to have this baby. So I was tired. Like, I did take naps, but I was tired. And whenever they put my epidural, they couldn't get the right spot. They had to try like 4 times. I'm not even kidding. They tried 4 times, and mind you, keep this in mind, they had to try 4 times because they couldn't get it. And so basically after that, I told my mom, like, I'm just tired, and she even told me, she's like, I know you're tired, maybe you should just consider this, because the baby's probably tired too, you know, like, we've been trying to get this baby out for 20 hours, and my husband was obviously sad because I didn't want a C-section from the beginning, and we knew the recovery was longer, and it gets me kind of emotional because I, like, just thinking about it, like, almost makes me feel like I'm reliving it. Okay, so I told my husband, like, what do you think? Should I do it or what? And she's like, look, I'm going to give you 15 minutes. I'll be back. I'm going to go ahead and start setting everything up. And so I was like, okay. She said, I'm not going to push you to do a C-section if you don't want to. But I feel like in a few hours, we're going to have to do it either way. And so I told my husband, like, we should just do this. Like, we've been here for 20 hours and nothing's happening. Well, I mean, I was progressing, but every time they would check for my dilation, my baby would come back up all the time. And basically after that, me and my husband decided we were just gonna do the C-section. I was scared to death, and so was he. I think he felt more bad that I was the one having to do it, you know, and I didn't want to. And basically it was like I had to put the baby first. Well, I would have put the baby first like I did, but he felt like, I don't know how to explain it, but basically he felt bad that I had to make that decision, you know, that we couldn't try. I mean, we could try more if I wanted to, but we were putting the baby's health first. That's what I mean. And so basically she comes in 15 minutes later, and they start getting me ready for my C-section, and I go in for my C-section at 9:52. Mind you, my baby is out at 10. She's out. And I just remember like going in, and then they're asking me my name, my birthday, and I tell them, and then I even remember they asked me how to spell it. And then they asked me if I felt anything, and I'm like, nope, I'm numbed up. And then I couldn't feel anything. Like, I was, like, I couldn't feel anything. Literally, I couldn't feel anything. I was even scared. Like, I would move my arms, and I'm like, whoa, you know? It was so crazy. From so much medication I had, I was even itching. Like, I was having a reaction. So then after that, my husband and me are there, and they start my C-section, and then they're like, I hear her cry, I hear Ainoa crying, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's born, like, my baby, you know, and then they show her to me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and I couldn't have her vaginally, and I don't think I could have, I didn't have her vaginally, and I don't think I could have, and she weighed 9 pounds, 7 ounces, and she was so big, and she was so cute, and everything that I ever dreamed of. And then I just remember looking at my husband and him looking at her, and then like we were just so happy, you know, like it finally happened. I felt like the whole pregnancy was so hard on me, but it finally had, like, I'm about to cry. It finally had, like, everything that I had sacrificed and everything that I had gone through, like, it finally paid off. And then, so basically I have my baby, and they sew me back up, they give the baby to my husband, and then he waits for me in the recovery room. Then they take me to the recovery room, and I'm there for 2 hours. And I'm there for 2 hours, and I'm still crying. I'm there for 2 hours, and then everything's going good. They basically just check to see how, like, you're bleeding and all this stuff. I'm sorry if it's TMI. And I breastfeed my daughter there. They let my mom come in and see her, because in the C-section, they only let one person go, and it can either be, like, the husband or my mom. And my mom was, like, obviously, like, letting my husband live the moment, so, which he was the one that I wanted to go in, because I feel like my mom would have, like, freaked, like, just seeing me like that, you know, all cut up. So basically, my husband goes to get my mom, and she meets the baby, and everything goes good. 2 hours later, they take me to my room where I'm gonna be staying at, and then that day, everything was good, and I could finally fall asleep without having a big belly, and like, some of the weight had already came off, you know. So that day I fell asleep. I was so tired. I remember from the medication that night, my in-laws were there. My mom and my sister were there waiting for us to go with the baby, and then they finally went home because they had stayed with me the night before. Well, they stayed whenever I went in, they went in with me, so it had already been 24 hours since we got there. So they were gonna go home, rest, shower, and then come in the morning. So then basically whenever I went to my room, my in-laws were there, my brother and sister-in-law, well, my brother-in-law and his girlfriend, and my other brother-in-law, and they were there helping us, and you know, I couldn't eat that day. I think they were telling me, like, because of all the medication you have, like, you don't want to feel nauseous and throw up, so I recommend you to just snack on crackers and peanut butter, and that's what I did. And I drink lots of water because of all the medication I had in my system. I remember I was talking to my brother-in-law's girlfriend, and we were talking, and it ended up being like 2 a.m. And then out of nowhere, I would just, like, fall asleep, and then I would continue to talk to her, and I would fall asleep, and then the medication just took over me, and I fell asleep. They ended up staying there with us overnight at the hospital. They had, like, a couch, and they stayed there, the 3 of them. In the morning, they went to go get us soup and stuff. But, okay, so that happened. And then in the morning, I woke up gasping for air. And at that point, I was like, I thought it was only because I was pregnant, and I only thought that this was happening to me when I was sick. But then I was like, I need to tell the doctor. So then whenever I woke up gasping for air, my husband was there, and he hit me in the back, and he was patting me so I could like catch my breath, you know. But in the moment, I was freaking out because, mind you, I had just had my incision, and when I got up so fast that when I was gasping for air, you know. So basically, that happened, and I told my nurse, I'm like, I woke up gasping for air, like, why does this keep happening to me? Like, I finally had enough, you know? And she told me, like, oh, I'm going to tell your doctor. So then a few hours pass, and my doctor comes in, like, what happened? And I tell her, I'm like, at 6, I woke up gasping for air. It was already 8 in the morning when she went in. So I'm like, I can't go back to sleep. I don't want to wake up like that again. Like, I have my baby. I'm scared that I'm going to forget to breathe. And, you know, like, I was paranoid because now I have somebody that I have to live for. And so basically, she just told me, like, I think you have sleep apnea. And then that's when I was like, oh, I have sleep apnea. But I didn't know what that meant. And so then later that day, I had I had visitors and stuff, and everything was fine. I forgot about it. Like, I knew what I had, but I didn't really know what the meaning was. And I had visitors, everything was going great, and then I had to stay a total of 3 nights at the hospital. I ended up leaving until Wednesday. So I stayed Sunday. Mind you, I went in on Sunday morning, so I stayed Sunday morning, Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday, and then I left Wednesday. So the next few days it was kind of fine. On Monday I woke up with a headache. And they told me that it was because, my husband told me, he took me to the bathroom that morning because I needed to go. I had been off the catheter, and he took me to the bathroom, and I told him I feel really lightheaded, and then I don't know why I'm feeling like this hurts really bad, like it's worse than a normal headache. And then I ended up telling my nurse, and then they ended up getting the anesthesiologist, and then he ended up telling me, there was a nurse anesthesiologist. She told me that basically every time I would get up, my head would hurt, and every time I would lay down, my head would stop hurting. So she told me that could possibly mean that I had an epidural dermapuncture. So that's basically whenever they put your epidural, they go a little bit too far and they leave a hole in like your spinal membrane, and then the fluid liquid that goes through your spine and up to your brain leaks, and so that's why it would hurt. And that basically I needed a blood patch to heal that epidural dermapuncture. So basically what that meant was that I was going to have a blood patch go in right back in like an epidural to heal that hole, you know? And she told me that I was going to have another needle in the back, another needle in the back, which when I got my epidural, they didn't get it right. And basically, like, they tried a lot until they finally got it right, you know, like 4 times if I'm not mistaken. And so I didn't want that. She told me, like, is it really that bad, or can you stand the pain? And in the moment, I didn't want another needle to the back. I was tired of all the injections I was getting and all the shots I was getting, you know. So I just didn't want anything else, you know. So I was like, no, maybe I can put up with it. Like, if it's not gone by the day that I leave, then it'll be an issue, you know. By the day that I have to leave, that's what I meant, not by the day that I leave. And so then I thought it was probably just from the C-section, because they also told me, my other nurses, you know, they change every 12 hours. So then my nurses told me, my next nurses told me that basically C-sections are really big surgery and that it was going to take a while to recover from, and that it's obviously very painful and the medication's wearing off, and that's why my head was hurting. And I'm like, this is so weird because I can't even, like, nothing hurt right in my incision, but my head was pounding, like, in excruciating pain, and they wanted me to get up and walk, and they wanted me to, you know, start to do things on my own. I couldn't. Every time I would get up, my head would hurt. And I started to worry about it because I showered and it was hurting the whole time. And I tried, and I was trying, you know, and I was on pain medication, so I couldn't explain why I still felt so bad. And then I remember there was this girl on Instagram who posted about something like that, and then I asked her about it, and, well, I didn't ask her about it, but in the back of my head, I was thinking, oh, like, maybe something happened to me like it happened to her, you know, because she posted about it. So it was helpful to me because I was like, maybe that's what happened to me, you know. So this is why I'm making this video, so if any of this happens to you guys know what's going on. Okay, so then I started telling my husband, like, this is not normal, like, this is not normal. And he said, like, you're so dramatic, like, just, it's normal, like, it's the pain because you just had a C-section, it's such a big surgery, like, it's normal. And I'm like, no, it's not, no, it's not. So, then, fast forward, I end up leaving on Wednesday, and I had to stay an extra night. People with C-sections usually stay 2 nights. I had to stay 3 because my baby had jaundice, and she had to have treatment for it. So we ended up staying another night. That's why I stayed until Wednesday. And so Wednesday comes around, and then I get my discharge approved, and that day I was tired of being at the hospital already, you know, like, I was tired of it. I wanted to eat real food. I wanted to go to my bathroom, and I wanted to go be in the comfort of my own house, you know. So whenever I got discharged, I did have a headache, but it was not excruciating. Like, the noise did bother me, but it was not like it was once I got home. So I signed my papers, and they even told me, like, are you still feeling bad? And I'm like, yeah, a little. And my so basically after that, I ended up coming home, and then they wanted me to eat, and I ate, and then I can't remember how it happened exactly, but I think I laid down. No. I don't remember exactly how it happened, but I started feeling my headache, you know, and then I told them, like, I don't, like, this is not normal, like, I need to go lay down. And everybody was eating bread at the table, like my husband, my friend, my brother-in-law's girlfriend, and my brother-in-law. And then I was like, my head's hurting, like, I'm gonna go sit on the couch. And then it started hurting really bad, and I'm like, I'm gonna go lay down on the bed. And so then it escalated from there, right? So my mom ended up coming, everybody ended up coming, like, to cook food for me and stuff, and I couldn't eat at all. Like, every time I would chew, my head would hurt. Every time I would lift up my head off the bed, it would hurt. Like, I would have a rush, you know, and it was horrible. Like, it was really, like, excruciating pain. Like, it was the worst experience ever. So basically, I had that, and that day at night, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep here at my house. I was crying, and I was telling my family, like, I can't sleep tonight because I feel like every time I get up, like, my head hurts and all this stuff. Like, I was explaining it to them, like, and I'm having sleep apnea. Because whenever I got discharged, my friend made a comment, sleep apnea, that's like a whole nother ball game. Like, that's bad, you know? And so then that's when I started looking it up. And sleep apnea is basically whenever there's two, like, basically it happens mostly to people that are overweight, which I definitely gained a lot of weight during my pregnancy, if I'm not mistaken, 70 pounds. I'm already 17 days postpartum, and I've lost 50 pounds already, so I need 20 more pounds to go. Plus, I'm still going to continue to lose weight after that because I want to get rid of my sleep apnea completely. And sleep apnea has a big correlation to overweight or obesity. And I don't know why I did this because it is obesity. And so basically I had gained 70 pounds during my pregnancy, which I was already overweight when I got pregnant. So obviously that was what caused or triggered my sleep apnea. And so that day that I was home, I was crying to my husband and to my mom and telling them, like, no, I can't fall asleep today. I can't fall asleep. If I fall asleep, I'm gonna die. And they're like, pásate. Pásate.
¿Qué haces?
Mi video.
¿Quieres cambiar a la nena?
Sí, ¿para qué? O sea, del pañal o de qué.
Sí, pues para.
Oh.